Those of you watching this video who have seen my content before may have realized that I have rebranded my channel. I have nothing more to say about that. Let's get into the video.
Let's say you're in a conversation with somebody, or somebody comes up to you and says, hey, why is Christianity true? In other words, why is Christianity the only religion that can get you to God or get to heaven? How can you?
Which is a really stupid question because Christianity is multiple religions wearing a trench coat.
Be a Christian who is so arrogant to think that your way is the only way and all
Which is a very good point.
of these other religions are going straight to hell? What would you say? Well, in this video, I want to suggest to you that there are 4 questions that can helpfully guide you through a conversation with someone who is skeptical about Christianity. And if you can prove that the answer to these 4 questions is yes, then we must unequivocally conclude that Christianity is true, and by deduction,
We'll see. Oh, wait. Oh, shit. Dropped my other earbud that's connected to my phone. Whoops.
all other religions are essentially false. Okay, before we jump in, I've got a free online course for a limited time only. It's called the Bible Study Roadmap. I would love to put it in your hands.
No. It's just going to be bullshit. I know that for a fact.
8 power pack trainings that will help you dig into the scriptures and go deeper. You can learn more about that in the description box below. Okay, with that out of the way, let's jump in. Question number 1. This is the first question that you must get people to agree to, and that is the idea, does truth exist? Now you have to start.
That's a really dumb question. Yeah, truth exists. There's not really much to say about that. It's truth.
By asking this question. Do you believe that there is such a thing as truth? Now, you have to start here, because if this person doesn't agree that there is such a thing as absolute truth, then essentially having conversations about anything, whether it's
Okay, here's the thing. Yes, there is such a thing as absolute truth. The issue is regarding what you may think is absolute truth, which may be wrong. There is such a thing as absolute truth, but for the most part, what somebody considers absolute truth is usually very, very, what's the word? Subjective. It's usually very, very subjective.
science, whether it's God, whether it's religion, is basically a waste of your time. So if they say, well, I believe that some things are true for some people, but they're not true for others, right? That's the whole, it's true.
Well, yeah, some things are true for only a minority of people. Like, only a minority of people can say, I am more than 6 feet tall. I cannot say that with truth, but they can say that with truth. And that is truth for them. So, yeah, there are absolute truths. Absolute truth is simply being true within the facts, right? Absolute truth is simply regarding the universe as it is. That may sound bullshit to you. Cry me a river.
True for you, but it may not be true for me, or whatever. So this is the starting point of the conversation. So you need to help them understand the difference between relative truth and absolute truth. You need to help.
Yes, that's a very good distinction. Relative truth is very different from absolute truth. Absolute truth is something like the sun comes up in the east. I think it's the east. Fuck, am I gonna have to Google that? The sun comes up in the same direction every day. I'm going with that. That would be an absolute truth because it's true to the universe as it is. It is true to what actually happens in reality. That would be an absolute truth.
Help them understand that yes, there are some things that can be true for you. For instance, the best cars in the world are foreign cars. That might be your opinion. That might be true for you, but it might not be true.
Okay, that's not what truth is. That is an opinion. Truth is fact, not opinions.
For me. Or let me give you another one. The best flavor of ice cream is chocolate. Okay, yes, that might be true for you, but it's not true
Once again, that is an opinion, not a truth.
for me. So, yes, those things are subjective, but you need to make them understand that while there is such a thing as subjective truth, there is also such a thing as absolute truth that is true for all people at all times, no matter what your opinion about it is. Let me give you an example. The earth revolves around the sun. That's not just true for you, that's true for everybody, right? Water freezes at 32 degrees. That's true for everybody. 2 plus 2.
I'm not gonna let that one slide because he was vague. I'm not sure if he was vague on purpose. But what I've learned from dealing with answers in Genesis is I cannot let anybody get away with being vague. Water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay? It's very important to be specific with things regarding truth. That is very important. 32 degrees Fahrenheit, because water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius. So saying just 32 degrees may be wrong if somebody else is dealing with Celsius and you are dealing with Fahrenheit.
Equals 4. That's not just true for me or true for you. That's truth. Fire will burn you if you touch it. If you don't believe that's true, go try to touch some fire and you'll see.
Once again, this is not vague, or sorry, not specific enough. Fire will not burn everyone if they touch it. Somebody with a prosthetic limb that's made of entirely metal may not be burned by fire if they touch it. And that also, it depends on what your interpretation of touching is as well. You have to be very, very specific when regarding matters in what that are as important as truth is.
You'll see very clearly that that's true for everybody. Humans need oxygen to live. A triangle has 3 sides. You get my point, right?
This is what Ivy League University.
Technically, circles have 4 sides. But that's advanced geometry that I don't want to get into.
Universities you can get into with a 3.6 GPA.
Go look for, if you want to know, if you want to see what I mean, just go look for Vsauce, the YouTuber Vsauce, and look for his triangle 4 sides short. Technically, with the criteria of what makes a side of a triangle, technically it has 4 sides. But that's neither here nor there.
There's no such thing as what is true for you and is not true for me. There are some things that are absolutely true. So at this point, you can conclude that there is such a thing as absolute truth, to which any rationally minded person would agree. And you can move on to the next and more important question, and that is the idea, does God exist? So
The answer is I don't know. And that is a perfectly good answer when you have absolutely no evidence to the contrary and no evidence to the affirmative. That is the true answer.
now that we agree that truth exists, we have to move down to the next question. Do you believe that God exists? Now, if the person says yes,
Now, see, that would be subjective. The first question was a question that you can answer factually. Do you believe God exists is a subjective question. Some people will believe God exists, some people will not. The real question that needs to be answered here is, does God exist? And the answer for everybody should be, I do not know. Because nobody has empirical evidence that cannot be disproven that God exists. And as far as I know, nobody has proof to the contrary either. Nobody has empirical evidence to the contrary either. So the only sane and rational answer to the question, does God exist, should be, I do not know.
then you can skip past this and you can move on to question number 3, which we'll get to a little bit later, right? But if they say, I'm not sure if God exists, or they say they don't believe God exists, so we need to make sure we have some arguments in place, some talking points. So now, even though we have never seen God, the beautiful thing about God is that he has given us enough evidence of his existence. And let
Bullshit.
me give you the 3
New channel name, General Bullshit. There you go.
primary arguments that you can use in this discussion. Now, when you're talking to somebody, you may not necessarily need to use these phrases because that might intimidate them. All right, you don't need to use cosmological argument, moral argument, teleological argument, all that stuff. You don't need to use all that.
Ah, yes, the good old watchmaker's argument. Debunked time and time again, but people still fucking use it.
Just
That is the teleological argument. God, that's annoying to say. That's what that one is. It's also known as the watchmaker's argument or the argument for design. And like I said, it's been debunked time and time again, also by me, but also by many other people.
explain the concepts to them. So let's start with the first one, the cosmological argument. And basically, all 3 of these have 3 statements, or 3, I put 4, 3 statements that you can basically agree to. So, first statement of the cosmological argument is
Wait. I was just thinking about this for a couple seconds after he did it. He's been doing editing here. Why didn't he cut out him putting up 4 fingers and just redo that? Why didn't he just do that? Because for me, I don't edit my videos. The only edits that I have done for my channel are my shorts, which are done by my friend Cecil. Why didn't he just cut that and do another take? That's really weird.
statements that you can basically agree to. So, first statement of the cosmological argument is everything that had a beginning has a cause.
This is really fucking stupid because technically God would need a cause as well. Technically, it's special pleading on their part to just say that God didn't have a beginning, so it didn't have a cause. It's special pleading, and it's really, really weak arguments. The reason why we don't say what the cause for the universe starting is because we don't know. I don't know is not the same as saying it didn't have a starting effect. The answer is we don't know what started the universe. And a book that is a few centuries old a few millennia old, that has absolutely no evidence backing it up is not a better argument for what is the cause of the universe, then we don't know, because that book has not been proven to be entirely true. AKA the Bible has not been proven entirely true. So you can't use that as evidence because you haven't proved it to be true yet.
So anything that you see that has a beginning, it doesn't matter. We can all agree that something must have caused that beginning. Things don't come into existence by themselves, right? If something comes into existence, it must have a reason or a cause for its existence. Things don't just pop into existence out of nothing. Any rationally minded person would.
Actually, if you know anything about quantum physics, you'd know that's not true. But quantum physics is really, really advanced science, so we're not going to get into that. But I'd like to point out that this argument is already full of holes, because technically there are things in the universe that do not have a cause to be in existence.
Would agree with that, right? So the second statement is the universe had a beginning, right? So this is not an this, once again, it's why you had to start with the truth element, right? So this is not something that's true for some and true for no. Even secular non-Christian science.
Yes, the universe had a beginning. And unless you have any proof as to what caused the universe that has been proven to be true, move along. We don't have an actual answer to that question.
Scientists agree, looking at how the universe has been expanding. If it's been expanding, you can deduce that at some point it had a beginning. Even scientific evidence like the Big Bang Theory, okay? Even if you meet somebody and they believe in the Big Bang Theory, right? Even that, if you believe in that, you have to believe that there was a bang at the beginning. Something happened at the beginning to cause this world to come into existence. And so if every
I'd also like to point out that causes like that are not always caused by a sentient being. A rock rolling down the hill the cause of it rolling down the hill could easily just be wind from a cycle of wind pressure, air pressure, could easily be explained by something that does not have actual thinking capabilities.
everything that has a beginning has a cause, and we also agree that the universe had a beginning, regardless of how you think that beginning came to be, then premise number 3 must be true, and therefore that is the fact that the universe must have had a cause.
Which may or may not be true. We still have no evidence as to what that cause was.
So since the universe began to exist, it must have a cause outside of itself. This cause must be powerful, right? Eternal, and not part of.
No. It does not have to be powerful or eternal. Those are unbacked assertions. First off, small changes can have big ramifications. Therefore, the cause could have been something small that set off a chain of events that ended with the universe's creation. So that is an unbacked assertion that is false, and the idea that it had to be eternal? Where the fuck is that coming from? Where are you getting that from? That's an unbacked assertion that honestly I don't even need to debunk, because he's just saying that. Just because you just say that does not mean it's true. Give me evidence that the cause had to be eternal. What is your evidence for that? Let's see if he gives some.
Of the physical universe, which points to God as the creator. Now, we haven't.
Bullshit!
gotten to the Christian God yet, right? So we're going to get to that a little bit later on. So the first argument is the cosmological.
You have jumped to an ungodly, no pun intended, amount of conclusions. You have jumped from the universe had a cause to it must have been a god with literally no basis for that. You have jumped from cause to it must be this cause with absolutely nothing to back it up. My cat is meowing. They have food and water. God fucking damn it. It's every time I make a fucking video.
Cosmological argument, those three statements. And the second one is the good old-fashioned teleological argument.
Has been debunked so many times. Please do not make me debunk it again, dude. Please. I'm sick and tired of debunking this stupid, brain-dead argument. Ugh, fine, let's get it. Come on,
Now, this
say your
also
bullshit.
has three statements that you need to help the person understand. First statement is pretty obvious. Every design has a designer. That's clear.
There's no evidence that the universe is a design in the first place. Therefore, it does not need a designer.
Right? When you see something that is complex, something that's ordered, like this Apple Watch right here, or this phone over here, or this microphone, or a painting.
Once again, people who see advanced technology are more likely to think it is magic than to think that it is science. So, your idea that people can inherently know that something was designed has absolutely no basis whatsoever. Because somebody from a tribal, a tribal, uh, fuck, I hate when I forget words. Somebody from a tribal, fuck, civilization, there we go. Somebody from a God damn it, I hate words. Why? Somebody from a I forgot the words that I was using before. God damn it! Why does this happen? Therefore, somebody from a hunter-gatherer society. Let's go with that. Fucking use synonyms. Use synonyms. Someone from a hunter-gatherer society. If they saw your Apple Watch and you showed them how to use it, they would readily say it was magic or that you were a god instead of think it was designed. Once again, if they saw your Apple Watch, they would not think it was designed, they would think it was magic, they would think you were a sorcerer or a god. It is a scientifically proven thing that people witnessing science far surpassing their own would assume it to be magic. Okay? So there is absolutely no reason to believe that everyone would readily accept and intuitively know that your watch is designed. There's absolutely no reason to think that.
Or a building. We all naturally conclude that it was designed.
No, we all have been shown from an early age that they have been designed. We all know that buildings and cars and phones were built by somebody because we were told it was. That's why you inherently think that your watch was made by somebody, because you've seen similar devices that you know that people have told you were designed by someone. You understand that because you were taught that.
By someone, not by chance. We don't believe that this watch you just throw a whole bunch of parts into a box, shake up the box, and boop, out comes a watch. Who believes that? Nobody believes that. When we look at this,
Yeah, because we already have a preconceived notion that it was made by somebody. Somebody else from a different time period may not have that preconceived notion, and therefore may think it to be magic. Just like you think that the human body was made by magic.
this watch, and we see how complex design it is, we all agree that it had to been some mind behind it that designed this watch. And even secular, non-Christian scientists and atheists would agree that the universe and life on Earth shows incredible complexity and
Complexity, yes. Design, no. Complexity does not equal design.
fine tuning from the structure of DNA to
Fine, no, no, just no. The human body was not fine-tuned. It barely gets by working the way it is. And sometimes it just doesn't. When will you understand that the human body is not a wonder? It is a hastily made machine that barely does its job and usually doesn't even do that much.
the precise conditions needed for life to exist. And if you want more on
No, 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 I'm not letting that slide either. Because if the if it didn't have the precise criteria for life to exist, you wouldn't be here to say that it has the precise criteria for life to exist. Simply put, you're here to say that because it happened. It is a coincidence.
this, I don't have time to go all in this video. I want to encourage you to check out my video on the multiverse. It's going to go into
Oh,
much more detail
Lord. Is this motherfucker... Did this motherfucker make a whole video on the teleological argument? No, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. You can't make me.
on the specifics of the fine tuning of the universe. So
God,
first
this
and
guy's a
foremost,
fucking
every
moron.
design has a designer. Second of all, the universe is highly designed. Third of all,
No, it is not.
the universe must have a designer. Do you see how
Nope.
these statements kind of flow naturally and logically from one to
Logic does not mean truth. You can use logic, but if you start with faulty data, you will get a faulty conclusion. Only rarely will you start with faulty data and somehow get the right conclusion. It does happen, but it is exceedingly rare. Chances are, if you start with faulty data, you will get a faulty conclusion. And this video is riddled with faulty data.
another, right? So the universe must have had a designer. And this ultimately points to God as being the intelligent designer.
Nope. Nope. Another jump from who knows where to, oh God, why the fuck is it God again?
Behind everything that we see.
Get these ads out of my face.
Okay, so I love this third argument for the existence of God. It's called the moral argument. And basically, once again, it has
The moral argument is bullshit too, because there's no such thing as true morals. There's no such thing.
3 statements. First and foremost,
Dude, this dude is just speed running all of the bullshit arguments that I've debunked in previous videos. Holy fuck.
every law has a lawgiver. Any law that you see.
Yeah, but a scientific law is not the same as a court law. It's not the same. They are... Oh, fuck. There's a specific word for it, but there's a specific word for it, but it's basically words that are pronounced the same, that are spelled the same, but have different meanings. There is such a thing.
In our society,
I was going to give you an example, but I realized that the example is different. It's similar, but it's words that are spelled the same, but have different pronunciations and different meanings. Read and read.
whether it's laws of cheating, stealing, murder, whatever it is, laws don't just appear out of nowhere, right? Whenever you see a law or a rule, there's always someone who created it. So just
Once again, scientific laws like gravity are not the same as like civil laws like do not steal. They are different. They are different concepts. They mean different things.
just like human laws come from lawmakers, moral laws must come from a
Oh, now he's talking about moral laws, but there's no such thing as a moral law.
moral lawgiver. So that's the first statement, right? Is that every law has a lawgiver. The second statement, there is a moral law. Now,
No, there is not.
you can look across different cultures, different times, and people recognize that certain things are right and certain things are wrong. For example,
No. I'm gonna actually give an example of a society where these things where each of the things that he says are wholly acceptable.
most people, if not everybody, agrees with things like murder, steal.
Literally every civilization in history does murder. It's called a war. Stealing? Can't think of one off the top of my head, but stealing is one of those things that, oh, wait, maybe not a civilization, but there are people in every civilization who think stealing is okay. They're called criminals, dude. It's called a criminal.
Stealing and lying are wrong.
I don't think lying is wrong. Dude, lying? Why the fuck would lying be wrong? Malicious lies, yes, but just lying, there's such thing as a white lie, dude. It's a lie to protect someone. Lying is the shit, man. Lying is great. But these videos are geared towards truth, so I don't lie in them. There are times for lies, and there are times for truth. It's really simple.
And this shows that there must be some sort of moral code, some moral law that has been
Nope.
deposited within all of our consciousness.
The reason why most people think those things are bad is because it's an evolutionary trait of creatures that exist in a community. If the people in the community didn't work together, aka not steal, not murder each other, their community wouldn't fucking last long.
consciences, that how is it that every single person agrees? Now you might say,
and they would die out, and then they would not produce offspring. Therefore, it would be a negative selection pressure. I just wanted to get that last part out.
someone might say, well, I don't agree that everybody agrees on issues of morality. Essentially, we do, right? So let me give you an example. People who believe that stealing is okay, they don't believe it's okay for somebody to steal from them, right? So you might say, well, somebody might feel it's okay to steal. So that means their morality isn't the same as mine. They don't believe the same thing that I do.
Which is true.
Let's think about that for a second, because they may be okay with stealing from somebody else, but would they be okay if somebody stole from them? Or what about people?
But that's still being okay with stealing. It's a subjective okay with stealing, but that's, like I said, that's somebody who doesn't believe that stealing is wrong because they do it themselves. They may not like it when somebody else steals from them, but they're not going to say it's wrong. Okay, some hypocrites may, but like, that's not somebody being against stealing. That's somebody being against stealing from themselves. Therefore, that is still somebody who thinks stealing is okay.
People who believe in sexual freedom, right? You might think, well, they don't have the same moral issues as I do because they just believe that anybody should be able to have sex with anybody no matter what, anytime, any place, anywhere. They might think that for themselves, but would they be?
Is he going to say incest? Because, my God, the amount of royalties that, like, did incest is insane. Literally all of Europe, literally every monarchy in Europe did incest. So if he says people universally think that incest is wrong, he couldn't be more wrong.
Okay if someone were to do that to their teenage daughter, right? No, they probably.
Oh, went in a different direction than I thought, but the Japanese, I forget what time period it was, but the Japanese thought of teenage boys as a third gender, and men would readily rape teenage boys. Not every society thinks that pedophilia is a bad thing. I think pedophilia is a bad thing. I think it's awful. But it's not a universally known thing.
Probably wouldn't. At that point, they would say, wait. There's laws in place here. There's a moral code here, right? This is violating my moral code for how I think things should be. What about people who murder other people? You might think, well, they think that this is.
There are so many murderers out of prison, in prison. Clearly, they don't think murder is wrong.
It's okay to murder. No, but would they be okay if someone murdered their loved one? They would not. So the reality is we do.
People like that don't tend to have loved ones. People like that typically only think of themselves. Like, I'm talking serial killers. Now, of course, there are going to be some people who kill other people who have loved ones that they don't want to die, but there are people out there, terrifying people, who just do not have, like, any sort of connection to people that way.
Do agree on issues of morality via our conscience. And the question is, who put that there? Why do we all universally agree that
Nobody put it there because it's not a universal agreement.
some things are right and some things are wrong? And this leads me to premise number 3. Therefore, because every law has a lawgiver, and we also understand that there is a moral law, there must be a moral lawgiver. If a moral law exists that everyone seems to recognize, there must be someone who gave that law. And this points to the existence.
There is no moral law, therefore there is nobody who could have possibly given it.
Of God, who is the source of these universal moral laws. So the reality is that God has left us plenty of evidence of his existence.
You gave one piece of evidence of the existence of God, and then the rest were just ridiculous conclusions that came from a leap in logic that has absolutely no scientific basis. Other than that, your one fucking evidence of God was based on the idea that universal morals exist, which they don't. So, you've given no proof of God, bro. You've given absolutely no proof of God. 40 minutes? Yeah, we can do more of this video, sure.
But this still does not mean that Christianity is true, because there are other religions.
Now he's going to
Also
prove that
believe.
now he's going to prove that he has the right religion, or more likely he's not going to prove that he has the right religion.
That God exists. So now we have to go deeper, and this now leads us to the third question. Did Jesus rise from the dead? So now we're getting closer.
Technically, this is the fourth question, but the second question was, is God real? Was that whole thing one question? It might have just been one question. I'm not sure anymore, to be honest.
To, is Christianity true? And so to help us answer this question,
also, the answer to did Jesus rise from the dead is likely no, but the answer I don't know is an easily acceptable answer as well, because there is absolutely no evidence that it happened.
There's a few things that we want to look at. First of all, historical evidence of Jesus. So there might be some people who say, well, how do we even know Jesus existed? Well, okay, hold on a second. Even non-Christian historians attest to the fact that a Jewish man named Jesus lived and was even crucified. So
the evidence of him living and dying is not the same as him living and dying and being resurrected from the dead. You have to have separate evidence that he was resurrected from the dead.
You can reference, for people who question Jesus' existence, you can reference sources outside of the Bible. People like
I've said this time and time again. Yes, Jesus may have existed. He may have been a real person. But you know what are really valid answers to who was Jesus? There are two very valid answers. One is he was a raging narcissist who got off on having everybody think he was the Son of God. Second answer is he was just a stand-up dude who somebody made a story about, and people blew that story way out of proportion by embellishing it. Those are two very valid answers to what could have happened, of the real story of who Jesus is. Now give me evidence that disproves those, because that's how the scientific method works. Give me evidence that those two ideas that could possibly be true, give me evidence that they are not.
Tacitus, people like Josephus, people like Suetonius, people like Pliny the Younger, Lucian of Samosata, I think is how you pronounce his name. They all affirm Jesus' historical existences. So this is not even in question at all. This establishes the non-controversial fact that Jesus lived. Now let's get to the more controversial fact, and that is evidence for the resurrection of Jesus. Well, let's look at the empty tomb. If Jesus didn't rise, why wasn't his body produced by his enemies to squash the movement? No historical
It was produced. He was nailed to a fucking cross. I guess what he means is to show Jesus's body, to show that he is truly dead. But who the fuck would want to roll that giant ass boulder out of the way? Who would want to do that? Of course, there is the very real possibility that the body wasn't there, but that grave robbers stole his body. Hell, that's what happened to literally every mummy in the Great Pyramids. Because if you literally have a giant monument that says, "Hey, here's where the king was buried," don't you think people would want to get in on that action? Likewise, you have a tomb that everybody knows where it is, that everybody knows, hey, this is where the supposed Messiah came from. Or sorry, where the supposed Messiah is laid to rest. What kind of sick fuck would not want to go and, like, have a souvenir? That sounds cool as fuck. I would love to have the dead Messiah's hand on my desk as an ornament. Maybe I'm crazy, but, like, I know there are people who would think the same. And no, I'm not joking. I would fucking love to have the dead Messiah's actual hand on my desk as an ornament. That would be fucking awesome. Maybe I'm weird. Who knows?
Record exists of anyone disproving the empty tomb. What about the eyewitnesses? The Bible talks about over 500 people claim to have seen Jesus after his death in
The Bible has not been proven to be true. In the whole Bible has not been proven to be true. Therefore, you would need to prove this account to be true. You cannot use it as evidence if you have not proven it to be true.
1 Corinthians 15:6. Not only
Or
that,
should I say my catchphrase? Scripture is not valid evidence. There you go. There, for you long-time listeners or watchers, there's the catchphrase you've come to know and love. That and bullshit.
there is also writings outside of the New Testament. If you want to criticize somebody for using circular reasoning, right? There are writings outside of the New Testament that also
Spider-Man. Spider-Man has comic books. There are comic books of Spider-Man. He is not a real person, but the city that he lives in, New York, is Queens a city or is it a part of New York? I'm honestly not sure. I'm really shit at geography. People who have watched me for a while know that I'm really shit at geography. But my point is that Spider-Man, not a real person. Anybody today would understand Spider-Man is not a real person. The city that Spider-Man is in the comics is New York City, I think. Or is it Queens? Is Queens a city? No, I'm getting sidetracked. The place that he lives is a real place. Just because that place is real does not mean Spider-Man is real. Just because Jesus is a real person who lived at that time, just because the book that features him says he was risen from the dead, does not mean he was risen from the dead. Does that make sense to everyone? Good. If not, well, listen to it again.
testify that there were people who were eyewitnesses or believed they were eyewitnesses of the resurrected Christ.
You got that anywhere but the Bible that we could validate?
What about people who are willing to die for their belief, right? Why would they die for something that they knew was a lie? If they stole the Bible,
They may not have known it was a lie. They may have wholeheartedly thought it was true. Doesn't mean it is true.
body of Jesus, and they knew that they stole the body, and they knew it was all just a hoax, why would they be willing to risk their lives for this? Look at the transformation of some of the disciples, the apostles.
There was an actual court jester who readily said shit just for the laughs that would have easily gotten him killed. Story about an actual court jester in history slaps the king on the ass. King turns around and is furious and asks him, give me one good reason why I shouldn't have you beheaded right now. And then the dude goes, I'm funny. And then the king goes, okay, if you can give me one joke that is better than that is more funny than you slapping me on the ass, I will let you live. And this absolute mad lad goes, sorry, my king, I mistook you for the queen. Do you understand that if literally anybody else said that, they would be beheaded or and possibly even tortured before they're beheaded? There are people who will readily die for the things that they believe in or for the things that they lie about.
Went from being fearful followers to bold preachers willing to face death, suggesting that they truly believed in the resurrection. Let me give you another reason.
All over the earth, God is raising up a new breed of wealth builders who'll use their money to shape the course of world history.
If you go through the book of...
Dude, how many ads has this motherfucker had in 14 minutes? It's been like 6 fucking ads. Dude, do you have an ad every like 2 minutes? That is fucking greedy. That is fucking greedy, dude. Like if I had the choice, I would put them at least 5 minutes apart. I know that ads suck. Possibly even 10 minutes apart, dude. Wow, that's a lot of ads. Now that I'm really thinking about it, he had a lot of ads up to this point in this video. Holy shit.
Acts, no one ever refuted or disproved the resurrection of Jesus. I love this.
Yeah, because it's all word of mouth. There's not really a way to disprove, not with the science at the time, and certainly not this far past the date. There was no way to disprove that idea. There simply wasn't a way. Just because it hasn't been disproven does not mean that it is wholly out of the question that it could be true. It could have been a hoax. It could have been true. It could have been true. But without more than just word of mouth that could have easily been a bunch of people lying, why would anybody take that as empirical evidence? It isn't.
Point. So when you look at the book of Acts, the disciples frequently brought up the resurrection of Jesus, right? Now, if this never happened, if the resurrection of Jesus never happened, you would have...
Rumors spread really, really fast.
Expected the listeners to immediately refute or deny that this ever happened. But
not if they never saw whether it did or didn't.
This is not what we see. For example, Acts 2:32. This Jesus, Peter says, when he was preaching his sermon, God raised up, and of that we are all witnesses. Notice that when Peter said we all witnessed the fact that God raised Jesus from the dead, if this was
I'd like to point out that there was no comma where he moved where he enunciated the comma. The line shown here was, wait, let me get it back. This Jesus God raised up. Jesus God. It's referring to one person. Jesus God. Raised up. Maybe they typoed where the comma was, but like right here it says this Jesus God raised up, not this Jesus, comma, God raised up. No. Also, once again, scripture is not valid evidence. Moving along.
and of that we are all witnesses. Notice that when Peter said we all witnessed the fact that God raised Jesus from the dead, if this was not true, wouldn't
Lies. Love them, hate them, they exist.
you expect the people to say, wait, I don't know about that. What you talking about, Peter? That we didn't witness that. That's not
Because they were higher ups in the religion. Why the hell would anybody refute them? They trust them. Doesn't mean we have to.
true. You preaching some false stuff. Nobody said a word. What about Acts 3:15? And you killed the author of life, whom God raised from the dead. To this we are all witnesses, or to this we are witnesses. What about Acts chapter 5?
Once again, could easily be lies. And once again, scripture is not valid evidence.
30 and 32. The God of our fathers raised Jesus, whom you killed by hanging him on a tree. God exalted him at his right.
Didn't they kill him by nailing him to a cross and letting him bleed out? Isn't that famously how Jesus died? People say the Bible doesn't have contradictions. Dude.
Right hand as leader and savior to give repentance to Israel and forgiveness of sins. And we are witnesses to these things. And so is the Holy Spirit, whom God has.
Once again, doesn't matter if somebody said they were witness, because this could easily be fiction. It could easily be historical fiction. Ever heard of fucking what, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer? I think that's what it's called. I think it's Abraham Lincoln. Regardless, there is an actual movie of a historical US president killing Dracula. Doesn't mean it's true just because the dude lived at some point in history. Historical fiction exists.
Given to those who obey him. Peter saying, look, I'm not making this up. You saw it.
There's one single video that's responsible for leading over 2,000 Christian
Fuck
men to permanently
off.
quitting.
I saw it.
Dude, that was like a minute. Did you see that? We just had one at like 14 minutes. And now it's 15:30. What the fuck, dude?
All these 500 people, they saw with their own eyes. They were not hallucinating. We all saw the risen Christ. Why don't you believe? So in each of these situations and others, the resurrection of Jesus was never refuted. It was never denied. And it was
never refuted or denied in the book that says it happened. Why would they have it refuted or denied in the book that says, hey, this happened? Clearly there was an agenda when creating the Bible. Whether you like it or not, there was an agenda there. So, why the hell would they say, oh yeah, and we were proven wrong? Why would they say that? It would be so much easier to just lie and say nobody refuted it. Because people lie. It's a fact of life.
Never even questioned. And there is all sorts of other evidence that points to the fact that Jesus not only was a true historical figure, but also rose from the dead. But now
there is no evidence that he rose from the dead. There is evidence that, that he was a historical figure, maybe, but there was no evidence. Oh God, I am gassy today. There is absolutely no evidence that he rose from the dead. God fucking damn it.
we get to the
Play,
fourth and
goddamn.
final question that you hopefully.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna do this whole video. If it goes long, it goes long. But, you know. Oh man, it's fucking midnight. Oh, whatever.
Will get someone to answer in the affirmative as we're asking the question, why must Christianity be true? Is the Bible true? Now, why is this question essential? Because if we
Is the Bible true? The answer is, I don't know. The answer is, there is no proof that it is true. In fact, there is a slew of proof that it is untrue. Therefore, it would be an okay thing to say that the Bible is not true.
can prove that the Bible is true, then that means we must accept everything written in it as truth.
Yes, if you can prove the entire Bible true, but if you prove one thing in the Bible is true, that does not mean that everything in the Bible is true. Once again, Spider-Man living in a real city does not mean that Spider-Man is real.
So how do we do that? Well, what we don't want to do is use circular reasoning and just say that the Bible is true because it claims to be true, right? In other words,
Yeah, which is what Answers in Genesis does. This dude basically just said what Answers in Genesis does is wrong, which is so funny to me.
you don't want to pull out, what's it, 2 Timothy 3, for all scripture is inspired by God, because if you come across somebody who does not believe in your Bible, then your argument is going to basically be it's going to be dead right then and there, right? Like you're not going to know where to go in that conversation as soon as they say,
At least this guy is smart enough to realize that.
well, I don't believe in your Bible. So give me reasons outside of the Bible why you believe the Bible is true. Well, I'm glad you asked that. Let's look at the historical evidence. So you can look at what historians have written, particularly about the events that happened in the New Testament. Watch this, is very important. And essentially,
Yeah, the New Testament. Except the Old Testament has been, time and time again, proven to be false.
you can reconstruct the entire story of the New Testament without even referencing a verse inside of the Bible, which gives evidence that what's inside the Bible is credible. I want to direct your attention to this graphic on the screen right here. And I want you to notice that these are all things that were written by secular.
God, that's blurry. Can I get that not blurry, please? There we go. Allegedly predicted the future. Followers thought Jesus is a real man called Christ What does that one say? It's cut off a bit. Wise King versus Wanted Man. I can't really see that one. I think there's too much missing off the side there. It's cut off too. Why did he have this,
I want to
like,
direct your
zoom
attention
in
to this
so
graphic
quickly?
on the screen right here. I want you to know
Why he cuts off so many of these? Reported, executed the day before the Passover. Jesus lived, Jesus was crucified. So basically, all of these, except for one, are either Jesus lived and when Jesus was crucified, right? All of them are that, or they're all from word of mouth, except for one that says the dude predicted the future. Which I don't think I even have to say anything about that. That's batshit fucking crazy. That's what that is. All of the ones that I can read here that aren't horribly cut off are basically word of mouth, and Jesus lived. Does that sound like solid evidence to you? Because if it does, you need to reevaluate everything in your life.
notice that these are all things that were written by secular historians, and you can reconstruct the entire story of the New Testament, not even using a verse in the scriptures. Let's take a look at it. Pliny the Younger wrote that
Oh, here we
Jesus'
go.
followers thought he was God.
Yeah, Jesus' followers thought he was God. Could easily be everyone being fooled by a dude's lies.
Suetonius, he wrote that Jesus was a real man. He was called the Christ. He caused Jewish.
He was a real man, and he was called the Christ, meaning probably his followers.
Disturbance. Can I get an amen, right? Jesus was always in conflict with the religious leaders. Let's look at it again. Celsus, he wrote that Jesus was allegedly born
Allegedly,
of a virgin. His father was a carpenter and he had miraculous.
yeah, if he was born of a virgin, how the fuck does he have a father? I guess maybe that's like adoptive father or stepfather. And had miraculous power, that's just word of mouth.
Power. Josephus wrote that Jesus was a wise man and his followers reported that there was.
Yeah, his followers. They were grieving. They were out on a foggy day and thought they saw the dude that they looked up to was alive again. How is that reliable testimony?
Was a resurrection. The Talmud wrote that he was executed the day before the Passover and had magical.
That's bullshit. Had magical power. Nobody here has even proven that magical power is even real.
Power. What about Phallus? He wrote that Jesus lived, Jesus was crucified, and look at this. When he was crucified, there was darkness and an earthquake, which
Could easily be a fucking coincidence. Cloud came over the sun and a small earthquake happened. Do you understand how many places have clouds overhead when there's a fucking earthquake happening?
is consistent with the accounts of the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus in the Gospels. What about Tacitus? He was called the Christ. His followers were called Christians, and he was executed under a man named Pilate.
He was called the Christ by his followers. His followers were referred to as Christians. What does any of that matter? It basically goes along with he existed. He existed. This was his title. This is what his little fucking followers were called. That's all that says. Oh, and this is the dude who executed him. None of that is out of the ordinary.
What about a man named Bar Serapion? He wrote that Jesus was a wise king, the Jews wanted him dead, and that his teachings remain.
He was a wise person, which is hardly divine. The Jews wanted him dead because he basically said that their religion was bullshit. Actually, I think it was more along the lines of he claimed to be the son of their god. I think that's what it was. He claimed to be the second coming of God, basically. And they didn't like that. And his teachings remain. Well, yeah, there were a bunch of people following him. After his death, it makes sense that they would go on to continue his teachings.
And finally, what about Phlegon? He said that Jesus predicted the future.
Oh, that Jesus predicted the future. Okay. And what the fuck did he predict? Was it something that's easily predictable? Like, oh, hey guys, I'm gonna get fucking crucified because, and get this, I pissed off these people from this religion. It's kind of a very predictable thing, dude.
Jesus rose after death. Woo!
Word of mouth.
And he showed signs of crucifixion, my brothers and sisters.
Yeah, because, and get this, the people who had it burned into their retinas, this man nailed to a cross, maybe, and hear me out, their hallucinations would also reflect that.
You don't need to go in the Bible to prove that what's inside of the Bible is true. Just look at history. Just look at what secular, non-Christian historians who had no bias or reason for why they would want to write this, other than the fact that they wanted to be considered to be true historians. Here you have the entire story of the gospel accounts, specifically.
Then why aren't they Christians? If you are not taking their words out of context, not putting words in their mouth, and you're not drawing obscene conclusions with absolutely no evidence, why are they not currently Christians? If this was absolute evidence that Jesus was the Son of God, why are they not Christians right now?
Specifically, the life, death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus using extra biblical resources.
A groundbreaking biohacking innovation has joined forces with the UFC Performance Institute to protect athletes.
But there's so much more. What about archaeological?
Unless I autopiloted and got rid of a different one, at least that's, what, 4 minutes? That was 4 minutes, right? Yeah, because it was... Or was it 14? 14:30 or 15:30? I don't know. It was a decent amount of time, unless I autopiloted and got rid of the ad before I even realized it was on the screen.
discoveries. For instance, things like the Dead Sea Scrolls. What about cities that are mentioned in the Bible? Places that people thought, oh, well, maybe that's not in the Bible, but through archaeology, they were able to rediscover certain cities, certain things that were in the Bible that support the historical act.
Once again, just because Spider-Man in the comics lives in a real city that exists in reality does not mean Spider-Man is a real person.
Accuracy of certain biblical events.
There may even be an actual person in reality named Peter Parker who lives in that city. That does not mean that he is Spider-Man.
And places. And then my favorite, what about prophecy fulfillment? My brothers and sisters, the Bible contains prophecies fulfilled hundreds of years later. For instance, Jesus' birth in Bethlehem was prophesied in Micah chapter 5, verse 2. Hundreds of years before the Messiah even came. These fulfilled prophecies provide evidence that,
Or, and hear me out, Mary, the mother of Jesus, right, got knocked up. Didn't want to admit to anyone that she got knocked up. She went, looked in her Bible, and was like, oh my God, I got lucky. They prophesized that a boy would be born from a virgin. Oh my God, this is my chance. And then she lied to everyone. Is a very real possibility.
the Bible is divinely inspired, right? So when you look at certain things that were written in the Bible and you ask yourself, how could these people have known what was going to happen 500, 600, 700 years in the future when you and I couldn't even tell what's going to happen a week from now? The only logical explanation is that
I know this is splitting hairs, but meteorologists can predict what weather is going to be like. Some people can predict what will happen in the coming days. That's because they know something that somebody else doesn't. And what that person predicting a few hundred years in the future knows is that some dumbass might take advantage of the fact that he prophesies this, and therefore it will become true because some dumbass lied and said they were the one in the prophecy.
it had to have been inspired by a divine author. What about the unity? Unity despite
Shut up, Yara! Sorry about that.
diversity. Despite being written over 1,500 years by 40 different authors, the Bible maintains one coherent.
Look at the dude in the bottom. Wait a second. For those of you who are only listening, he's got like a montage of like puzzle pieces coming together, and like there's a bunch of people, one hand on each puzzle piece, putting it into place. But the puzzle piece on the bottom,
Years by
the
40
dude
different
is
authors,
struggling.
The Bible maintains
The dude is struggling so much to get this puzzle piece on there.
one coherent message centered on God's plan for.
Okay, maybe not struggling too much, but it was slow enough for me to notice it, and I don't typically pay attention to the visuals on screen when I'm doing this.
Humanity, further suggesting divine orchestration. Basically, this means, my brothers and sisters, do you think it's possible to put 40 people in the room and ask them to agree on all things morality, agree on all things historical?
39 people and one drill sergeant. Drill sergeant says something. All of the soldiers know it's not true. But would they fucking dare to open their mouth? Because they know they're going to be punished if they tell this guy he's wrong. Why would they open their mouth? Why would they?
Whatnot. No, you'd have all kinds of different opinions. But when you look at the scriptures written by 40 different authors over a 1,500 years of time, some are written in caves, some in prisons, some on an island, all sorts of different places over a period of time. And yet all of them agree on the.
Where does it say where these chapters were written? Does it say it? Oh my God. In the chapters? Almost like it's a writer, a single writer, who just says this is where it was written and says this is who wrote it. Just because it says it in the fucking text does not mean that it is true.
Same central message, my brothers and sisters, that gives strong evidence that the Bible is true. So, in conclusion, if truth.
Also, if some of the people in my audience were around for the early days of the internet, you may know about LARPing chat room, or sorry, not LARPing, that's live action. So role-playing chat rooms. They were pretty popular back in the early to mid 2000s. They were pretty popular back then, and everyone contributed to the story, right? So there were a bunch of people, each taking their own liberties with the story. But obviously, it was a fictitious? Is that the right word for that? I'm going with fictitious. That doesn't mean what I think it means. Tell me in the comments, or not. Each person contributing to a fictitious story. A fictional story. That's the right word, fictional. I think fictitious just means, like, untrue. A fictional story. A bunch of people contributing to a fictional story, but it's still a fictional story. Wouldn't it make sense that even if all of these people were different people, that they might have been just making their own additions to a fictional story? It is a possibility.
Truth exists, number one, then that means it's possible that we can know that God exists.
Possible. Likely? Nope.
And that God's existence is true. Not just true for you or true for me, but true for everyone. And if God exists, then we're getting closer to Christianity existing, because Christianity claims that God exists. And if Jesus rose from the dead, that means that the greatest miracle in human history has already occurred.
What if it was some random trickster god, like Loki? What if some random trickster god just resurrected this dude to make everybody think that that his religion was right? Does that not sound like something a trickster god would do? Does that not sound like something Loki would do? Just because your famous god guy got resurrected does not mean that it was his god that resurrected him.
A dead man being raised from the dead, never to die again. And if the Bible is true, then everything written in the Bible must be true, which proves.
You haven't proven the Bible true, though. Even if you had proven that Jesus did rise from the dead, that does not mean the entirety of the Bible is true. Even if you proved that it is your God that raised Jesus from the dead, you still would not have proven the entire Bible true either.
That Christianity is not only true, but it is the only way to get to heaven. My brothers and sisters, I hope and pray that these 4 questions.
No, you don't get to do your outro. It's outro for me. And you did a very shitty job. Anyways, hope you like the rebranding of the channel. If you've made it this far, holy shit, you've listened to me for 1 hour, 25 minutes non-stop. Thank you for the watch hours. Much appreciated. Maybe give me a like. Maybe subscribe if you haven't already. It would really help me. Got actually a nice amount of subscribers from the shorts. I'm very happy about that.